You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Taking a look at the North Indian Ocean right now, we have Cyclone Tauktae, which is off the western coast of India and affecting land at this point, with tropical storm force winds over land and possibly getting towards the 50 knot level of tropical storm force winds as it progresses along the coast there, moving gradually towards the north. We think it will make maybe a closest approach soon and then start to move away just a little bit and then head towards the Gujarat coast. As of right now, we're giving it 75 miles per hour and a pressure of 978, which is what we had earlier. And that's what you've been seeing on our automated stream, which is always running. Now, forgive me if things may be slightly rushed getting things ready here, because it was, but I'm sure we'll be alright and we'll be able to give you the latest information on this storm as we always do. You can send in questions to us, start your message with Force 13 all in text, and I'm joined by my team for this stream today, which consists of Joey, Kenneth, Noah, Ryan Knack, Stormy World, the Phone Expert, and the King of Crabs. What a great lineup we've got today. Hello.
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 Now, this storm has already produced a lot of rainfall over the southwestern part of India. Do we have any indications of how much yet? And that was the main threat for the areas further south. We were looking at possibly 30 inches of rain. Any news on that?
Technically, as we speak, it's still raining here.
Still raining there. And you're, how close to the storm are you?
I mean, it wasn't that far, but it was just rain bands affecting all of us.
Yeah, and indeed a lot of the rain bands pushing northwards now towards Mumbai and beyond perhaps there. But you can see towards the centre of the storm, the cloud tops blew up quite a bit in the last few hours. Northwestern side also having quite a bit of flare-ups there too, away from the central core. But in the centre of the storm there, the rainfall rates are off the charts, as you can see on that imagery. Let's see if we can get another image up here showing you another progression of the storm. This right now from the RAM imagery, the infrared. You can see that it's just the height of those cloud tops in the last few hours there, extending into the minus 90s by the looks of things in both of those bulks of convection and very close to land. The center of the storm is probably around 80 miles away from reaching land areas. All right, let's take a look with Joey right now on your screen. Hopefully this button works. Oh, look, there's me. Well, that's good. You've got me. But Joey, you're showing us the visible imagery of the storm, I think.
Yeah, and many people have been noticing a sort of eye-looking feature on the system, and that seems to be something that's formed from the banding of the system. And if we take a look at the microwave imagery, it does show that that it is banding quite a lot, and it is trying to form that eye in the system.
Yeah, it certainly is. Let me just try and get back. I'm looking for, just got to press these buttons and hopefully it will appear. Yes, this is the latest from the India Meteorological Department. You can see the track forecast on the left hand side and the wind expectations. Let me just bring the legend of that up again. You're not able to see that on the screen. So the grey area on the very edge of the storm there, the periphery, that's for up to 61 kilometers per hour. Then the blue areas, that's 62 to 91. The green, 92 to 117. And the yellow, 118, which is actually hurricane force, the yellow zone. Also, you can see on the right hand side a storm surge graphic. Generally, we're looking at about 1 to 2 meters of storm surge for the whole region around Gujarat, and that inlet there, you can see the numbers rising towards 3 meters. What do we think about storm surge for the potential on this storm? Considering how it could be intensified. There's me.
Well, currently, I think that storm surge is arguably the biggest threat about this storm, as it's very large and it's forecasted to intensify to a great degree. And you have all that wind pushing up against the coastline with the water. These coastlines are very, very below sea level, actually. They aren't very high above sea level. So storm surge will easily inundate into those areas, which is why I think it's the biggest threat with the storm.
Certainly seems that way.
Storm surge has already affected areas here.
And just so that well, I guess to show it off, really, this is what... Oh no, it wasn't. Okay, well that's gone. That was our live stream. That's supposed to be our live stream, but it's an ad. That's wonderful. Excellent. So that made me look wonderful, and this is the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast graphic. There's some great graphics on our live stream. Forecasting a significant landfall, getting to Category 3 status there, calling for 105 knot landfall. That's 120 miles per hour. That's around 185 kilometers per hour, I think it was, or 190. So a substantial landfall on the cards. Quite a large cone, though. There's some uncertainty about where the storm might end up. I don't suppose any of you have commentary on what we've been thinking regarding that, and has it taken a jog further east than what we were initially anticipating as well?
Yeah, currently it's a bit more further east than we were anticipating currently, and there was a lot of and still is a lot of uncertainty with where this system will make landfall. I think a few runs ago, a couple of models were hinting that it would make landfall very, very close to Karachi in southern Pakistan, but I think those models have sort of backed off, and it is now looking more likely that it will make landfall on the India-Pakistan border.
Is that a densely populated area?
It is quite close to densely populated areas. The city of Mumbai isn't too far from that site, and the system is going to make a close approach to many populated areas. Kerala is a city that we are watching out for, as well as Mumbai.
Now, I was looking... Sorry?
A lot of people live near Kerala's coast, so most of them were affected. Most houses were destroyed and stuff. There was a lot of flooding here, so yeah.
Now, there's a lot of areas now, as you were talking about there. I think it's something like, at various points, it's been around 100 million people that have been inside a 10% chance for strong gales over 50 knots, which can cause damage. That's a lot in there, and quite a lot that will be affected by storm surge and particularly rainfall. But regarding flooding, phone expert, any thoughts on what you're seeing on the ground at the moment? Is it worse than what you might normally see?
No way. This has been the biggest rain since 2018. Like, not here. My place has never flooded, but the most flooding has occurred near coastal areas. in Ernakulam and Chelanam.
Yeah. And thankfully, I mean, the center of the storm, you see those incredible rain rates. The models were talking about 36 inches occurring in the storm out at sea, thankfully. So, India will be getting spared from the absolute masses of rain that could be falling. Of course, it's still going to be very high. A question there from Andrew. What is the CDPS scale for Tauktae right now, and what exactly is TICOS? Well, first, anyone want to offer the CDPS rating? Kenneth, are you on that?
I think I have the CDP calculation on hand. Only full members have.
Well, it was stage 7 this morning or
Yeah.
last night. It's around there right now. It's
Yeah,
catastrophic.
it's CDPS stage 7 with the rainfall being the largest threat. Expected over 8 to 60 inches of rainfall, as well as around 20 feet of storm surge if we expect a category 3 landfall. This is the first thing. The second thing is pretty much for a delta region, a river delta region, the elevation is very low, floodplain, very prone to flood, of course. In addition to severe flooding due to rainfall, as well as in addition to 20 feet storm surge, uh, that that extensive flooding will cause a really extreme damage to those delta regions for sure. So yeah, if someone is near the landfall position, evacuation should occur.
Yep, Joey, you were well, there's some visible imagery right now, but you're also looking at some warnings there.
Yeah,
And
this
you were
is
floating
from
around a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, this is from the Indian Meteorological Department, and they have issued a few warnings on May 18th for this sort of region. I'm very bad with pronunciation, so they've issued heavy rain warnings. Not many wind warnings have been issued, actually. If we take a look at the warnings for today, just waiting for it to load up, you can see that they've
I see.
issued strong wind warnings, thunderstorm warnings, and heavy rain warnings for this area in southern and southwest India here, which is where the system currently is and will continue to track as it tracks away. If we look on May 16th, this area isn't necessarily under any warnings because we are expecting it to track away from the coast and then recur back and then begin affecting land once again.
Certainly in the earlier hours of the day, though, it's still going to be quite apparent that the storm's there. You got some orange areas there. So that's an alert. I'm not really sure what the definitions really mean in those alert and warning, but from what we're seeing, it's going to be a substantial rainfall situation all along the western coast.
Yep.
Let's take a look at Ryan Knack's screen if it loads. What are you showing us right now?
Okay. I actually got hold of some survey stations recording some rain rates for the past 24 hours. This is basically all the rain rates that, rather total rainfall that has fallen in these stations over the past 24 hours. Like you see 136.1 here, the highest at 242 millimeters have fallen at Kano, I'm not so sure how to pronounce that. And further down south in the state of Kerala, we have rain totals of 219 millimeters, 150, and 137 in this case. So very huge amounts of rain is currently falling.
Those are all coastal as well, aren't they? Very low elevations, so there's higher elevations inland there that will probably get a lot more.
That is if the service station is there, but right now we're still not so sure.
Yes. More questions then. There was a question earlier about its favorability conditions with regards, how is it going to do over the next few days? How long does it have in prime conditions? Don't know if anyone wants to bring that up. We'll throw it back to the JTWC graphic. Kenneth, go ahead.
Okay, so let me also share the screen first. Here it is. Okay. So the model guidance also suggests that shear is going to be low. It is still under moderate conditions. However, it will drop significantly to just 5 or 10 knots, or even just less than 5 knots considering its movement. So less than 5 knots of effective shear, it would just skyrocket in terms of intensity.
Big.
Yeah, as our forecast makes it at 145 miles per hour peak. We forecast that. And the low shear environment will just last until the 19th, which is when it will make landfall. That means the optimum, very optimum conditions will just last all the way, like until the 18th, until maybe like sea surface temperature never a problem, always over 20 to 30 degrees, no problem. Mid-level humidity, well, pretty much if it's over 50%, then not much a big issue. The more issue will be the wind shear stuff. As also in let me see this. Okay, let me do a quick search.
What I was eyeing up just then, Kenneth, was on the multi-platform, the CTCX model, which takes it further out to sea, and that means it strengthens much more than the other models have it.
Yeah, CTCX pretty much has a rather high intensity tendency, bias, and they also track much more westward than what main models like HWRF and GFS forecasting.
Is it one to discount completely?
Not exactly. That more depends on how the Bengal High west of it, around center around 85 degrees east.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have any synoptic chart in the Indian Ocean. If it extend more westward, then it will move generally more westwards due to the steering from the high pressure, because the high pressure is way more influential than tropical cyclone. So a tropical cyclone will just, well, listen to what the high pressure steering said and go by the steering currents. And here's the current wind shear graphic. You can see the wind shear currently. The upper level anticyclone is still somewhat a bit displaced, with 15 to 20 knot shear effective affecting Tauktae. But as it continues to be more aligned with it, the shear will drop significantly, as I said before, and skyrocket in terms of intensity. Like that.
Yes. I mean, at the moment, it doesn't look like much of a low wind shear gap right now. Are you expecting that to change?
The wind shear will drop significantly after 12 hours. And that's when we will see Tauktae exploding.
And what I mean right now is you're seeing 40 knots plus over where it's going to make landfall on that graphic. Is that going to go down there as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, that also will be going down a bit. But after it make landfall, the shear will just skyrocket. As you can also see, the subtropical jets right here. Those westerly lines all the way at around 30 knots. Those will highly just destroy the storm apart from line proximity after it make landfall. So it will just disintegrate quickly. After it make landfall, like 24 hours, it will just pretty much gone.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add something that currently, I think the main problem for the storm is that it has pretty limited outflow especially on the eastern side. If you look at the satellite imagery, you don't see a lot of outflow on the eastern side, and that's because we have this upper level anticyclone, which is pushing against the outflow of the tropical cyclone on the eastern side. So that's a limiting factor. But as it currently looks right now, with the curling convective bursts in the center and the eye wall appearing to be closing, I would expect a rapid intensification phase, even with this limited outflow, to occur in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, as well as we recently, in the last hour or 2 week, we see a few hot towers blasting up, and the overshooting tops you can see in this radar imagery here you can see a very much stronger reflectivity here.
Hold on, Kenneth. We're
Which
just
is
getting it here.
Okay.
And it's not loading. Oh, there it is. There we go. We got it.
Okay, we got this radar. So the much higher reflectivity with respect to the overshooting convection blast northwest of it, the banding northwest of it in infrared. This is one hot tower, and we can see in near center. In this radar, it can pretty much indicate that at the northeastern side, there's another hot tower blasting, in which hot tower means the chance of rapid intensification will more likely to occur around twice higher the probability that the rapid intensification will occur compared to that without hot towers. As in 14Z infrared imagery, we also see more convective outbursts blasting from the western side and the southern side, which also somewhat match with the around 30-something dBz reflectivity shown in radar.
Do we have a radar loop?
Not really. I believe that only occur in Delhi radar.
Okay. And you would say from land right now, I'm getting a read here that's around between 80 and 90 miles offshore. If you look at the radar right now, Kenneth, would you expect that there's significant impacts occurring onshore?
Yeah. Currently, from surface report, you can also see very high rainfall, over 200 millimeters in some areas in total. Although we okay, here's the velocity map as well. Has it loaded the velocity map?
We're trying to get this on. We're just struggling a bit with that right now. I'm not sure why.
Okay. I'll wait a bit.
Yeah, you'll have to try again on that one. Oh, hold on. We've got temperamental pieces of equipment here, so don't mind us. Right, Kenneth, you'll have to try again on that in a moment. First, let's go over to Joey. Did you want to share this one with us?
So this is from the Pakistan Meteorological Department. This is their latest advisory. And they've stated winds of up to 70 to 90 kilometers per hour are likely to occur in the Sata. I'm very bad with pronunciations, but these areas. Not sure if you can see my drawings there, but they've also noted that there could be thunderstorms with heavy rainfalls and gusts of 40 to 60 kilometers per hour in Karachi, Hyderabad, Jamshoro, and Shahid Banzirabad, as well as these areas over here.
Sukur, Lakhana, Shikapur, Jacobabad, and Dadu.
So. Yeah.
During the 18th to the 20th of May.
Yep, and sea conditions will also be very rough, and they've already called the most vessels to return to the coast, and as well in Karachi they've begun preparations by some businesses are being boarded up, and billboards are being taken down. And they've noted that further intensification is likely. You can see the chart that they've put here. It comes very close to Karachi, which is that little dot there, as it makes landfall.
We'll take more questions in a moment because I know there's a lot coming through. Let's just throw it back to the latest infrared imagery from RAM. If you haven't seen this yet, you just saw a glimmer of the a glimpse of the JWC warning map. In the meantime, are we going to Ryan Knack?
Oh, I actually got hold of the looping radar. Yeah, if
Oh, really?
Kenneth actually wants to, take a look at this and probably present some thoughts. Right now, I only have this variant though because the Indian Meteorological Department doesn't have the other bands of the radars available for loop.
So we're certainly seeing the rotation there.
Yeah. Maybe. Also, let me share my screen as well. Maybe.
Yeah, hopefully we can
Okay,
get that
here.
working this time. Obviously, it's not your fault, Kenneth. We're just trying to deal with the... Sometimes this can happen. And we just get these squares that are
Is it
rotating
fine now?
around each other like that. There we go. We got it.
Okay. So this is the velocity map, which showed the winds at 0.2 elevation. So let's start with from the wind at the coastline. So you can see this light blue, moderate blue thing associated with around 20 something meter per second winds. But that is the around 300 something to 500 something meters wind. So applying 80%, minus 20% reduction. So pretty much now the surface may receive some strong force winds around 40, 50 something kilometers per hour, and maybe some gale force gusts associated with Tauktae. And so the first thing is the coastal winds. The strong force winds may extend all the way from here, Honifar, and all the way until here around south of Malvan. So here's the pretty much where storm force winds may be affecting right now. And so here's the surface winds derived from radar. And here we go, second thing, we go to the intensity estimates.
Yes.
Let's see the eye wall here. So you can see a much darker blue here, and the orange, very red-orange thing here. So the dark blue associated with almost around 40 meter per second winds, which that means, so by calculation,
That's low category 1, isn't it?
yeah, so it is 150 kilometers at 0.2 degree elevation. So let me do some calculations.
Doing the calculations.
Around 500 meters above sea level. That is accounts for the elevation bias. Also apply 80% there.
So many
That
calculations
also
that
means,
go into it.
yeah, that pretty much for radar surface observation, you need so many extrapolation formulas derived, like SCOMERS or something. Yeah, so that means a minimal category 1 status right now, derived from radar.
So that's what radar's telling us. And does every other method agree? What do we think about satellite appearance?
So for infrared satellite appearance, okay. Okay, let's back to the satellite appearance, maybe.
Massive cloud tops, though.
Yeah, it looks to be. I think it's starting a phase of rapid intensification, we see these very strong rotating and curling convective bursts, and that's usually a sign of rapid intensification that's occurring or just beginning.
Yeah, that is true. You can see as I mentioned before, several convective bursts at the northern side, western side, southwestern side newly burst with around 90 degrees Celsius at maximum, dropping around with data T number approaching 3.5 to 4. Yeah, depends on how you read. That's reading using pretty much that will be using curve band feature data T 3.5 to 4. Earlier visible, if you use visible imagery, you would get a DT 4.0 using visible eye. Yeah.
Kenneth,
Which pretty much supports 60 knots to 65 knots, which also aligns with our estimate or JWC estimates. Okay, Nathan?
Very high cloud tops extending northwest of there as well. It's actually even more expansive than the core now. How do we explain that? What is it?
That's just convergence in the inflow.
Yeah, as always, Indian Ocean has a very high, has an especially high tropopause height, which pretty much can explain why always in the Indian Ocean we see so very cold cloud tops for tropical cyclones.
Let's take some questions then. There's quite a few that came in earlier, and of course we're doing that. You can send them in. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. Chances of Category 5 for this storm. Any takers on that one?
So I personally think the storm will peak rather high, but I think the chances of Category 5 itself are relatively low.
I just don't know if it will peak as a Category 5.
Another question, will this be bad in Mumbai?
Rainfall will be pretty high there, so yeah.
Quite likely. What do we think of the storm's current status? I think we just went through that really. And are there any other systems that we're tracking or being indicated across the tropics? The short answer is yes. Don't know if you want to touch on those.
There's currently only one Invest 90S, which is okay. Let me move to the other side of the tropics. Okay, here another side of the hemisphere, right opposite the Tauktae. Here we have 90S, Invest 90S, which we give it currently a 30% chance of formation. Yep.
But in the longer term, you could be looking at more Westpac activity and the like.
Also, in long range in the next 10 days, we may also see one or two tropical cyclone in the West Pacific in the Philippine Sea. Not really, GFS forecast not especially weak. And back to 90 as a new convection block blasting over 90S. And it may have some chance of formation, but not especially strong, I think.
Yeah, especially with the MJO entering the Western Pacific in a few weeks, and then the Eastern Pacific. I think we're gonna see some Western after that Eastern Pacific activity.
More questions. A very small eye-like feature is developed in the infrared map of IMD. Can you please confirm that?
Yes, we pretty much confirm a radar eye has already formed pretty much several hours ago. But currently the eye is just maturing at a pretty decent rate right now. Let me share the radar again.
And Ryan's just showing us microwave as well now.
Yes, this is the 89 gigahertz mid-level microwave. Of course, it's slowly transitioning upwards into the mid-levels that shows that The system itself is, of course, intensifying with its current infrared presentation. You see these hot towers like curling convective bursts around the west and east of the center. It's basically just further enhances the fact that this system is, of course, on its way at a possible quick strengthening as it continues northward. You can see the curling eye wall that is building, and you'll likely close soon.
Yeah, pretty unmistakable that. Could a potential eye wall replacement cycle affect this? Is another question from Tropical Cyclone 295.
Not currently, but later on,
No.
of course. But those are really, really hard to forecast.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to forecast that, especially if we don't even have a cleared eye yet. This is just building an eye wall right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just had a question there about, do we have lightning data that could
I
indicate
think I could.
potential for
I
rapid
think I
intensification?
could send something in.
So that's one for you guys to think about on the team. Let's take a look at the GATWC map again. If you haven't seen it yet, there's what they're predicting. They're expecting a Category 3 landfall, and that would occur on Tuesday around lunchtime in Gujarat, and then move inland and weaken slowly at first and then more rapidly as it moves further in. But interesting to see how that, in fact, they have it intensifying at a very steady rate, completely steady all the way up until landfall. Is that a sign that this storm's forecast is easy to predict and very controllable, or that it's difficult to predict and they don't want to commit? What do we think?
I think it's difficult because usually when you have this steady state, usual storm doesn't just intensify steady state. It has more rapid intensification phases, and somewhere along the track, it's likely that we're gonna see a rapid intensification phase. And I think it's likely that this rapid intensification phase is starting around now with these strong curling convective bursts.
That wouldn't be very good. I was just about to read out another message, but it got, on the YouTube chat, sometimes it gets thrown up a page or two. Do you expect this to go through an eyewall replacement? And if so, if it so happens, will the wind shear hamper the system completely during the process? So that's it. You've already spoken about the eyewall replacement cycle possibility. We know it's always possible, but would it invite wind shear in?
Probably not.
Okay, and potential rainfall and winds in the estimated landfall area. So say it does make landfall on the coast of Gujarat in 3 days. Rainfall, it'll be moving faster by then, so rainfall won't be as high, but we still could be looking at 15 to 20 inches. And winds, you could be looking at Category 3 with Category 4 gusts. Seems most likely. We've also got Kay on board now. Good afternoon to you.
Hello. Good afternoon.
What are your latest thoughts on the storm? You've been following it rather closely as well in the last few days.
Yes, I've been helping out with forecasts and everything, and that requires keeping good tabs on the models and surprisingly good agreement on steady intensification over the next day despite the shear. And after that, as the shear drops off, the roof disappears and the intensity could shoot up at almost any rate. So while I don't expect it to rapidly intensify in the next 6 to 12 hours, beyond that it seems almost inevitable. That could change if dry air gets involved, but between 18 and 36 hours, this could go up at a very high rate. And if it does that, it's entirely possible we could go all the way through Category 4 and up to the very top tier. There haven't been many storms of that strength in the basin. We were talking last night about the two strongest according to the IMD, which is Kia of a couple of years back and Gonu 2007. Those storms reached 922 and 920 millibars respectively, with winds of 153 minutes sustained, according to the IMD. Now, if this storm gets anywhere near that, the CDPS would go up substantially. Surge would be phenomenal, potentially approaching record for the area, if not the country of India. And that's not something we want to see.
Our very own contributor Walter also asks about the ocean heat content in the region and how will it affect the storm. Well, first of all, what does that look like?
I can get you a graphic up in about 20 seconds.
Yep, I assume
It has to be really high.
Yeah,
Has to
that
be
would be
really
my
high.
assumption. Let's see what else we've got. Close proximity to land might be blocking it from going through rapid intensification due to land being present in the eastern outflow of the system, question mark.
Land presence over outflow doesn't affect it unless it's literally a mountain range.
I mean, the outflow is at around 12 kilometers up high in the atmosphere. What's affecting the eastern outflow is winds from a high pressure over the Bay of Bengal pushing against the outflow, and that limits it a bit. We have a bit of downslope dry air, which has been going into the core, but this seems to be out now, and a rapid intensification phase is probably beginning.
That's not good. Let's just
Also,
jump.
Nathan, I had the lightning data in the
really?
live output channel. You want to take a look at that?
Oh, I see. I'm not sure I'll be able to get it up to present. Could someone screen share that, maybe? But Kay, you also posted a graphic in there, didn't you?
Yes, this is not directly oceanic heat content, but it is linked. It is the maximum potential intensity, which is a series of calculations where you take ocean heat content, sea surface temperatures, and the temperatures as you go up through the atmosphere. It doesn't account for shear, doesn't account for dry air. It's just a thermal calculation. But given we should have very good humidity, low shear after 18 hours, the MPI is way higher than anything that's ever been seen in the North Indian Ocean. It does get this high relatively often, but the storms aren't able to take full usage of it for reasons to do with the environment that this calculation doesn't use. But as you can see, that's not miles per hour, that's 200 knots, greater than 200 knots maximum potential intensity in a theoretical scenario.
Well, MPI is as you said before, a theoretical calculation. So, an actual storm that actually exists is meant to not even approach this number.
In some cases, it can, like
Yeah,
Dorian.
in some cases,
Dorian
I've seen.
exceeded it. Isabel, 2003, broke MPI at its
Wilma.
third peak. But it tends to be
Wilma,
something that happens
2005.
at higher latitudes. This isn't the sort of situation where you'd see a storm getting near the MPI.
Oh, well, Ryan is showing us ocean heat content right now, so just to double down on that, there it is.
It's a graphic from RAM. Generally, the storm is riding along the yellow, about 50 to 75 kilojoules. So it's a lot of oceanic heat that this system will feed on as it continues northward towards Gujarat. So really it's just going to continue intensifying unless if the upper level environment starts to deteriorate.
Just scroll down a bit for me again. I just want to see the legend.
Okay, yep.
So the green area there, it's probably about 40 right now, and it's going to rise nearly to the orange to about 60. So the conditions will improve by 50%.
Pretty much, yes.
And that's in
Well,
24 hours' time.
I think even if the storm stalls a week in these extremely warm waters, the upwelling wouldn't get to it. So SSTs are essentially perfect for development and quick
Okay.
strengthening.
And also, I just want to break the news a little bit. The Indian Meteorological Department has confirmed that Tauktae, if I'm not wrong, it's pronounced that, has intensified into a severe cyclonic storm. I'm just gonna show the latest bulletin right now.
Oh, okay,
You see, it has intensified, and the cyclone alert for Gujarat and Diu still remains as yellow. And the system is expected to intensify further into a very severe cyclonic storm in the next 12 hours, and is likely to also intensify further, but probably not reach the SCS stage, if I'm not wrong, which is the extremely severe cyclonic storm. So this is generally the table that they're predicting.
So hold on a
Up
minute.
to
That only starts. That's not even the highest category, is it?
no, this
that
is
goes
the
up
third
to
highest.
an upper end very severe cyclonic storm would be 85 knots,
Yes.
3 minutes, which corresponds to an upper end category 2.
Yes. So do we
at
think
best, they're
that's a
forecasting
little low?
minimal major.
Do we think that's a little low?
I do. It's quite
Well,
concerning,
I do.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I personally do as well.
Well, they're only forecasting 100 miles per hour, 3 minutes sustained, which is the conversion for this.
And there once again is the JTWC track forecast, and you can see the radius there of the storm icons, the red zones. That's for gale force winds, and you'll see that large chunks of land will be affected by that right now. It will be extended out to millions of people along the coast over the next few days. Hurricane conditions should remain offshore for this first pass for the western coast, but when it gets to make landfall in Gujarat, we're thinking that's going to happen. Then obviously some damaging and very destructive hurricane force winds will occur on land. Let's take a look at what are we looking at now. There's the back to Ryan's screen, the IMD forecast as well. Is that updated now? Is it?
Yes, it's the latest bulletin. They update 3 hours before, so this is the latest. Yes.
Okay,
So you can
there you go.
see. Yep, still 85 knots, pretty conservative to be honest, and they have basically remained this sort of intensity for like the past few advisories now. It doesn't look like they want to go above 85. You see the landfall point over there as well.
Certainly is. So they have a landfall in a very similar place to where the JTWC has. So are all the forecasters blending into agreement now? Is this... How much wriggle room is there for this if you're going to do a cone and the areas that it could strike? You've got, of course, the very large city Karachi in Pakistan on the northern side of that. Is that still in the line of fire?
Karachi could still see impacts from this storm if it follows the older GFS solution, the CTCX solution. Goes farther out to sea. It'll pause for almost a day longer before the high and low catch it and pull it in. But because it will have stayed out to sea longer, it will have moved farther north and it will be heading very near to Karachi and Hyderabad. So that solution is still possible, and if it pans out, Karachi would get a weaker, because it will be a day longer, and that's a day of weakening with the shear rising and the dry air and lower everything, really. Still don't want a category 2 hitting the 12th largest city in the world.
A question about damage expectations. We don't really answer questions like that before a storm strikes,
No,
or
we
even
don't.
during. We know that with any storm, there's potential for catastrophic destruction. Sometimes it goes down to how well the planning is done. Sometimes it goes down to just the strength of a storm, and not always one parameter of a storm, but it can be several or different ones: the wind, or the heavy rainfall, flooding, or the storm surge. Let's see if we've got another question. A strange path for a storm in the Arabian Sea, taking such path making landfall in Pakistan or Gujarat. Generally, storms in May in the Arabian Sea travel towards Oman. Any reason why this one, I assume the question is, any reason why this one is a bit different?
This one is a bit different because we have a trough near Pakistan that's gonna pick it up, and usually you have a subtropical ridge in the Arabian Sea, which is gonna steer the storms toward the west.
But these things do happen sometimes, and I'm sure we can recall some of the examples. Kay, you've been going on about them a few times.
Yes. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which way you want to put it, the last storm to hit this area was 1999, and that was the extremely severe cyclonic storm ARB-01, also known as the Pakistan cyclone.
Back in the days
That
when these
peaked
things
as a
weren't
Category
named.
3. Yeah, peaked as a Category 3 in May. Pressure around 946. Made landfall in southern Pakistan, near the border with India. And then just a year earlier, there was the another storm that hit the area in 1998, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, there was a storm that made landfall in Gujarat, India, also as a Category 3 in 1998. And
It was
that
very busy
killed,
times for that basin.
unfortunately killed 10,000 people when it struck the same area this storm could be moving into. And that cyclone peaked at 120 with a pressure probably around 950. This storm could have a pressure lower than that and winds higher than that at landfall. So it's really nothing to take lightly. Potentially the worst landfall in this location that we have reliable records for.
Yes, pretty sobering forecast and outlook on this right now. Just some more questions there. Any chance it will reach 150 miles per hour?
Yep,
What would
that's a
you
chance.
put as the ceiling?
The ceiling of this, the ceiling would be less than 920 and above 160. It's hard to say how much higher because in the Indian Ocean, storms tend to get to low end Cat 5 and then just sort of stop in terms of winds. Their pressure might go down, but there seems to be some sort of magical barrier that restricts their intensification much beyond that due to the atmosphere in the area.
Interesting. And what is the population density in the area projected to make landfall? Well, let me run a little calculation. The area that is currently under both the JTWC and the IMD, I would expect that the hurricane force winds would go on and affect approximately, and this is very much an approximation based on its current projection, about 4 million people in there. That would be for hurricane force winds. For all tropical storm force winds, you'd probably say it'll be something like, and this is just at the landfall, it doesn't include places that are currently being affected right now. The population in that would be somewhere around 33 million that would receive tropical storm force winds, which can always be hazardous. I know you asked for population density. We don't have information on density, but I imagine, given it's India, it would be very high.
Yes, some areas it is high. It depends.
Let's see what else we have right now. Yes, a speculation there. SST's around 30 degrees Celsius, low wind shear tomorrow onwards, and still the IMD restricts it to 85 knots. And isn't it strange, is a question we received from Surish there. Well, I think that's been the prevailing thought from the team.
They are almost notoriously cautious with forecasting systems. If it goes for it and doesn't peak too short for the Dvorak to catch up, they're relatively accurate with their fixes. But what isn't exactly talked about, because you don't get to see it very much from the perspective of the public, is they do an incredible job communicating with the government operations in protecting people in the path of these storms. Even though it's, from a Western perspective, only forecast to peak as a Category 2 or minimal Category 3 by the IMD, they're taking it very seriously, and when the storm gets closer and landfall locations become more certain, they will start moving people out of surge vulnerable areas, because India has been pursuing a policy of attempting to achieve 0 fatalities from all cyclones. And while that's
staggering,
some might say that's unreachable, it's had immense effects in reducing deaths in the country, and they're very successful as a result of it.
They've been dealt too many blows in the past from extremely deadly tropical cyclones.
Yes.
We'll be wrapping this live coverage, live discussion up shortly. We'll have our live automated stream running with satellite imagery all the time, but we'll take some more questions before we finish up there. Once you send them in quickly, start your message with Force 13 all in text. Just from the team, any more observations you'd like to make regarding its appearance and anything that's changed during this hour?
Has radar been talked about?
A little bit. Shall we look at that again if we can?
I think it would be worthwhile. Has anyone got it up?
Sure. Okay, I'll share that.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Here we.
Just getting this up now.
And here's the radar. Which one would you like to talk about?
Reflectivity?
Reflectivity, sure. Here we go.
Right.
Mm.
So, something that's been going on over the last couple of hours is that just 3 or 4 hours ago, this was an open eye wall, and it was a banding eye feature.
Yeah.
And since then, it's very clearly closed off and formed a complete eye wall. And the strength of the reflectivity, which roughly correlates to the intensity of the updrafts in the storms that make up the eye wall, and relates to the strength of the storm as well as intensification, indicates this is going upwards at a faster rate than I anticipated, to be perfectly honest. I didn't expect it to be doing quite this well, given the shear it's experiencing. And that might suggest it's either dealing with the shear better or the shear is decreasing earlier than we hoped. And if that's the case, then even more time to intensify, which isn't a good thing.
It's looking very good on that image.
Absolutely is.
So would you call this rapid intensification right now?
It's uncertain whether it's enough to hit rapid intensification requirements, but it's certainly substantial.
Well, let me just say to Kenneth there, you're looking at that right now. Those colours look deeper than they were earlier.
Yeah, they're looks more symmetrical, or say more organized. The velocity, you can see in here. You can even see the purples are popping up in here. You can see more and more purples are popping up, which is near the near the 40 something meters per second, which is touching the liquid velocity which means the maximum detectable velocity. If it exceeds that velocity for say like 50 or say like 60 meter per second, like if show, then if it shows 60 in actual, in radar it will show 36 at the opposite side.
All right.
Then what you need to do is to add that first of all for these 8, and then you add the Nyquist velocity, then minus the reading value, and then you will get the actual velocity data, and you can do the conversion data to get the maximum winds.
We'll leave you
So
to
it's a
it,
little
Kenneth. It sounds
complicated.
very complicated for the rest of us.
Yes.
Indeed.
Sure, it's simpler when you got it worked out.
Yeah.
Let's just take a few more questions before we finish up here then now. One of the leading questions was, when are we going to be back doing another live event? No doubt we'll have one at a similar time tomorrow, but I don't know, Kay, have we heard of whether there's going to be one in the morning in India?
We're doing our best to see if anyone's available to host it, but we haven't got a concrete
Yep.
confirmation yet, so that's still up in the air.
Okay,
unfortunately.
so on our social media outlets, you can find Force 13, of course, and on there you will see any updates that come out regarding our schedule and, of course, what the storm's doing. And failing that, we've got the tropical weather bulletin tonight at midnight UTC. Looking at the clock at the bottom there, that's just over 8 hours away. And an hour after that, it's there's a update on this storm planned, a regular storm update, so we've got it pretty well covered, even if there isn't a live event in the morning, but we'll see where we're at, and that's the best I can suggest for the time being. Any other comments from the team?
Just one thing to note is that currently this is expected to heavily impact the town of Porbandar in India, which is the birthplace of Gandhi.
I heard about that stat earlier.
Yes.
Is that right next to the
historic.
storm?
Sorry?
Is that right next to the storm right now?
No, that's where they expect landfall.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
So potentially historic locations being impacted by this as well as the homes of millions of people.
And a final question there, GFS or Icon, which is more reliable for predictions?
GFS.
Yeah.
GFS.
GFS.
Okay, stay tuned to our channels and of course to the official updates. They're extremely important as the warnings continue to escalate on Cyclone Tauktae. We'll be back with more updates on the Force 13 channel in due course. Stay tuned and thanks for watching. Good night.